Hi, I'm Wanda Davis, here to speak to you about my new children's book, From Head to Heart. I am so excited about this book. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it because a lot of you have been asking. So this book is about a young girl named Gwen. Gwen, she was bullied for being who she was. She felt like she didn't belong. So what Gwen decided to do was build a big stone wall around herself. Over time, however, things didn't go so well in terms of she still felt alone. She realized she couldn't connect with other people, other things, and things seemed just dull. Over time, Gwen realized that it was time that she should take this wall down to be able to love life more. So she sought the help that she needed, took the wall down, and life became that much more beautiful again. And in other words, she was able to see the vibrancy of the life and the garden around her. So that's like a little bit of tidbit of what about the book is about. There are more parts to it. Perhaps you're just going to have to buy your own copy of this book. So anyways, I just wanted to let you know that's kind of the synopsis about From Head to Heart.
Welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Happy to have you back with me today. I have a guest, Wanda Davis, on the podcast. Wanda wrote a book that is written for children, but can also be appreciated by adults, whether you're a teacher, you work with students, you have your own kids. And if you've ever in your past struggled with or been the victim of bullying, this is a book that addresses that and also offers readers and those that interact with this book some hope. So Wanda shares a little bit about her past story in bullying. I share a little bit from my background with my history of being bullied as well. And we get into a great conversation, and Wanda reads a little bit from her book as well. And I really love hearing the book from the author's own voice. Welcome to Living in the Next Chapter. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com for everything about all of the great guests we've had on so far. And thank you for being part of the podcast. livingthenextchapter.com. And we'll catch you over there. Here we are, Wanda Davis on Living the Next Chapter. Welcome to the podcast. I have a guest with me who's in my province. What? Wanda Davis is with me today. We're going to be talking about her book that she wrote for children on a topic that means a lot to me personally, and I'm happy to have her on the podcast. Wanda, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Well, thank you very much for having me here, Dave.
It's exciting. Welcome. Living the Next Chapter, we love to focus on authors and share the message behind the book, to get to meet these great authors and spend a little bit of time getting to know you, so that when we pick up your book and we read it to our kids, we get a sense of who you are and why you wrote this. Exciting to have you on. I mentioned you're from my home province. Can you let everybody know where you are joining me from today?
I am actually in London, Ontario. So, the other
place.
London.
The other London, yes. Quite different from the other London, but a beautiful place in Ontario. A lot of family and friends from that area, so glad to connect with you again today.
Perfect.
Very good. Awesome. So you are an author and you wrote a book. How exciting is that? When did this book come out?
It was officially launched at the end of August, so about a month or so ago. But it probably was ready by May last year. Okay. So I essentially got the book in my hand actually on summer solstice in June.
Beautiful. Nice. So, okay, tell me what that feels like when this arrives at your home. You have the book. What kind of things go through your mind? What are you feeling at that moment when you get to see it in person?
Well, that was just it. To be able to actually hold a book in my hands
There it
was
is.
pretty exciting. Yeah, well, there it is again. Yes. um, yeah, so opening up, because I had ordered so many books and I got to open up the box and take out a book there out of the wrappers. And yeah, it was like realizing the amount of work that had gone into actually getting that book published. So it was probably over a year of doing all the different steps that are needed in order to actually get that book in hand. So, just that gratitude to all the people that have helped me along the way for sure.
Who are some of those people that were kind of cheering you on in the process?
Well, from the beginning, I was actually with my coaches. So receiving different coaching about different things. And when I kind of mentioned one day that I had written this children's story, and it was a bit of my own healing story, so that kind of went along with the coaching. It was that encouragement from them to actually publish it. Sorry. And so, being able to put myself, like a bit of my own story out there in the world was a little bit unnerving to begin with. But with their encouragement, I started going through the steps. And of course, the first step was finding an illustrator. And I had started with one illustrator, but then they realized doing a whole book was going to be too much for them. So then actually through my coaches, I think one of their other clients was Lucas. So Lucas Tenson. So we got connected and realized that he was actually going to be able to get this book done for me.
That's another big part of a children's book. That's interesting. Yeah.
So it was nice to be able to, I really wanted to go with a Canadian illustrator. So instead of doing something like you can easily just grab an illustrator off Fiverr or one of those other type of work sites, and it wouldn't have been as much money. But I wanted a Canadian illustrator to make this book really Canadian. And so, and starting, and getting the pricing and negotiating the cost with the illustrator, it was like, now I have to find a way to pay for this. And so actually what I did was I started a Kickstarter campaign. So the Kickstarter campaign would have been running, say, last September.
Great. How was the response to the Kickstarter?
I did pretty awesome, actually. So I was very grateful to receive the support that I did there. I think I had put down the goal of $5,000 and I made goal in 3 days. So a lot of my friends and family contributed. So, and I'd also talked with other people exactly on how to run a Kickstarter campaign because I'd never done one before. So it was that process of realizing, first you need the copy. I got actually a copywriter to help me write the copy for my Kickstarter campaign. And then I started doing the videos and then continuing doing the videos throughout the campaign as well. So, and just being able to keep up and thanking all the backers that happened. So very grateful to all my backers. And it was great to see so many when I went and launched at the end of August here in 2022. So like a year later, essentially, to be able to have so many of my backers in the room at the same time was pretty awesome. Just being able to thank them for, helping bring this book to life.
That's amazing. So if there's a new author out there and they're trying to figure out how to fund their book, would you recommend Kickstarter as a good alternative to starting?
Yes, I would. Yeah, because the other alternative you think of is the GoFundMe account, but they recommended the Kickstarter for if it's something to do with the arts. So whether it's, books, music, whatever, it was recommended to go through the Kickstarter way. So I just took that recommendation and flew with it. And their interface and their website are fairly easy to use. So there wasn't much of a learning cycle there either. So it was easy to be able to get that campaign up. But just knowing that I'd already kind of done a lot of the back work, like, as I said, to be able to get the copy written in order to be able to connect with people out there in order to contribute. So yeah, it was a pretty good feeling just being able to get that Kickstarter, because then it was like, now I have enough money to pay my illustrator, and I had, out of the 5,000, that also gave me a little bit of money to actually pay with the printer publisher that I decided to go with as well. So it was be able to kind of start getting that off the ground, like some of the major stuff that needed to get done. But then also there's still so many other expenses. So that's just kind of the being aware of what other expenses might be out there that you might then still also have to be funding. So some of those where I decided to also go, because we're Canadian, I also have the French version of the book. So the whole idea was I needed to pay for a translator. That was actually one of the things that I had said in the Kickstarter campaign, that if I had gone beyond the $5,000, because the whole idea is you have to build in rewards for each level for your backers, but you're also saying what you're doing with the money for whatever level that perhaps the money that you get. And so I had said for anything that I go beyond $5,000, I would get the translation done. Plus, I would also make some donations to schools and libraries, which I have also done, because this book is found in the London Public Library as well. So they have that, and I'm in the process of getting some out into the schools now.
That's amazing, right? To know, as a teacher in your past, to know that in the library will be sitting your book in the future, that's got to feel really, really good to make that connection.
Well, and that's just it, is just knowing that, this paper copy of the book will be there for kids to look at, to breeze through. And that's just it. The illustrations are beautiful. So, people are going to be drawn for it for the pictures, but then it's also got so many different messages layered in there as well. So, which I think it's the adults that recognize the messages and the importance of the messages in the book, and knowing how good it is for kids to read this.
Okay, so the name of the book, From Head to Heart, right? Yes. And let's see that book again. You got to hold that up. I love when authors hold up their book. So From Head to Heart, can you tell me a little bit about why you wrote this book and who the target audience is?
Okay, well, why I wrote this, as I kind of alluded to before, it was a little bit of my own healing story, the fact that I was bullied as a child. And so I think I've spent most of my lifetime kind of in that healing journey process of trying to see what parts of me still needed healing. And so I kind of decided to write the story, though, it's kind of written for ages 7 to 10, thereabouts, for them to be able to read it by themselves. But the whole idea, it really is a book for all ages, whether it's younger ones being read to or even the older ones, because there's so many different messages and layers and totally opening up discussions about things as well. So the fact is, it starts off with about a little girl that was bullied, and the idea, that explanation that bullying is not necessarily a one-time thing. It's something that happens over and over again in different ways as well. And from what she decided to do, the little girl Gwen in the story decides to build a wall around herself. So in the story, it's actually a big stone wall, and so you can kind of just think of it as some sort of boundary that she's placed around herself. Now, I actually remember doing that when I was about 5-6 years old. Kept very much to myself. I wasn't telling my parents after everything. I figured I had to take care of this myself, right? Take responsibility. But it's that whole idea that perhaps the way that I was doing it wasn't quite the appropriate boundaries that I was supposed to be setting. So, and at that age of 5 and 6, I didn't know exactly what was appropriate. But the whole idea of writing this story, though, is hopefully children won't feel, being able to learn a little bit more about safe boundaries and appropriate boundaries, and that they won't need to build their walls around themselves. They'll be able to actually respond better And one of the major lessons in the book is learning to ask for help. So at whatever stage of the process, whether it's when you're first being bullied or when you don't know what to do and you're feeling hurt and afraid of things, being able to talk about it. So, and that's like kind of another layer on this book messages is that idea of opening up discussions about feelings. Like probably in my house when I was growing up, we probably didn't talk about feelings very much. And I think that's something that's more out in the open now, but not always. And it's that kind of, the book is more that allowance that it's okay to talk about your feelings. So, if you're imagining a parent or a teacher or whoever reading this book to somebody or giving this book to somebody for them to read, having that discussion afterwards, it's like, well, did you see kind of what happened there? It's like she was really feeling sad. She was feeling afraid. She was, going through all the different emotions. And then what would be maybe an appropriate response to actually do after feeling such an emotion? Well, do you need to ask for help? What kind of supports could you get for yourself? What could you do instead? It's like, well, maybe release, if it was anxiety or tension, perhaps that's being felt, how could you work with that? So it's just all that type of discussion and talk about whether it's the feelings, and then asking for help is another big one as well. Knowing that students can do that or children can do that.
Yeah. And going back, like, it's amazing to know that something that happened back when we were 5, 6, 7 years old can still have a resounding impact on our adult life. And as someone
totally
reading this to their children, right, you might uncover and expose some of the things that maybe you haven't really thought about from your childhood. As you're reading this book to your children, that's amazing. So as an educator and what you've seen, with children and students over the years, are you seeing that bullying is the same? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? Your opinion kind of on that based on your background as well.
I don't know if I can say whether it's getting worse or better per se. It happens in different ways now, that's for sure, right? With the technology that's going on, the amount of bullying over cell phones or the computer or, whatever type of messaging the kids are using, that is that much more so nowadays. It's like the bullying's almost a little bit more subtle sometimes. But just the fact that one thing that also has changed is that zero tolerance for it. So if a child was in school and reported something, it will be dealt with and it will be looked into to whatever degree. And if something is happening, like, the messaging, texting, whatever over cell phones, especially when it comes to the older ones, it's like now we're getting into serious offenses. And the police can be called in depending on the seriousness of the offense. It's like, it will be dealt with now as long as it has come to light. So again, it's that person that's being bullied still needs to speak up, or a bystander needs to step up. So it's kind of that things are kind of put into place when the situation has been identified. But it still comes down to that original person that feels they've been bullied needs to report it.
So for parents and adults and educators in the space working with kids and students, whether they're our own or we're teaching them, are there any kind of indicators that maybe we as adults should take a second look at, maybe some of our students that might be exhibiting some of these walled existence, I guess, that your book alludes to, that maybe they're just kind of withdrawing? Is there like a little flag that kind of goes up and says, hey, I need to pay attention here?
Well, I think that was the word you just used, right? The withdrawal. So the idea, if you see that they're withdrawing perhaps from activities they usually enjoyed, withdrawal from people that they would normally hang out with, withdrawal from say even just going outside to play later. or withdrawal from going out in the playground at recess. So it's like seeing those changes, that type of change is perhaps putting a question in, and all it takes is asking the child, is there anything wrong? Is there a reason why you don't want to do this anymore? So again, it all comes down to just talking about it, being able to, have the child open up and feel safe in order to share.
I haven't asked any author to do this yet, but because your topic means a lot to me personally as well. Growing up, that was my reality as a young student. Spent a lot of time in the principal's office trying to defend myself against whoever. I don't know why I was a target, but I was. And can you share a little bit? Can you read us a little bit out of your book? Maybe a little excerpt that kind of just, I like seeing that smile on your face there.
What do you want, beginning, middle, or end? What part would you like to hear about?
I would like something from the middle.
Okay.
I'll leave it up to you completely, but I would love to kind of hear it in your words, read by the author. That means a lot to me as a reader as well.
Well, how about this one here? So I'll show you the picture afterwards.
Okay.
So Gwen hid her feelings of sadness and anger from the other kids. Gwen also hid those feelings from her parents. She started to live in her head. Alone inside her head, she could control things. So every night when she went to bed, she cried herself to sleep. The song, "Nobody Likes Me, Everybody Hates Me," echoed in her mind. So one night, she made a big decision. In her mind, Gwen built a wall around herself with big gray stones. The wall was there to protect Gwen from all the bullying and the insults. She made it really thick and high. And Gwen buried her feelings so that she would not get hurt again. You can see that little bit where she's burying her feelings. And so it's that whole idea of, just kind of totally making yourself numb to things.
Like, I can completely identify with that. Like, wow. Like, to hear it and to see it, it's amazing. So as an adult looking back over your childhood and the bullying that had happened in the past, what are some of the things beyond writing this book that have helped you to kind of move forward, addressing what's happened, but also learning from it and finding the growth opportunities that come from this?
Well, part of my journey has, and it's interesting too, because you start wondering too in terms of what physical issues may have resulted from, say, emotional trauma, correct? Just the fact, depending on where perhaps some fear or anger was stored in the body. So I also have scoliosis, which is the twisting of the spine. And so sometimes I wonder, you wonder how much of that was kind of because of perhaps earlier childhood experiences, or it could have been genetic, who knows? But just going along, because of some of that scoliosis and the physical issues that I do have, I did get into energy work. So being able to, I learned Reiki as well as like therapeutic touch and healing touch. But it was Reiki that is more my primary energy therapy that I've worked with. I am a Reiki master teacher. And I always because originally I kind of got into that in order for the relaxation. So the idea of being able to help the body relax, help the muscle tension. But I quickly realized too, which a lot of people don't realize about the energy therapies, is you're not just working on that calm and relaxation level as well, but you're actually working at a lot at the spiritual level, getting at those type of emotional traumas and helping heal those as well. So being able to work with the energy therapies was one way that I have done a lot of work helping myself, and then also doing coaching as well. And since I love being coached myself, I also went in and got my own coaching certifications too. So kind of one of those other things along the way where you realize it's helped yourself. So you go and are willing to offer it to others too. So
We
both
talked
of those
about
are things that
before we
I've
hit
done. Yeah.
record. Yeah, you also are a speaker as well, and you go out and share your message. Can you tell me a little bit about your speaking background?
Well, and again, having had my business for the last 15 years or so, and it has evolved over the years. So it started out just primarily, I was a Reiki therapist, doing energy sessions with people, teaching Reiki. But then, as I said, it's like different things have gotten added in along the way. One thing I really liked doing was going out and speaking about the different ways that energy therapies could help a person. And so again, trying to get over that viewpoint, it's not just rest and relaxation, which is great, being able to relax both your mind as well as your body. But just the fact of how much healing can still happen, those types of wounds that we carry around in ourselves, being able to help heal those. So again, just being able to offer that. But with the speaking, I also decided that, yeah, I want to be able to look at it from a professional point of view too, being able to get out and doing the speaking that way. And so actually I joined CAPS. CAPS is actually a Canadian Association for Professional Speakers, and I have learned so much from being in that organization. There is some requirements for being a member, as you actually already have to have had a speaking business started before you join. But just the amount of information about the speaking business itself, whether it's actual just writing the talk, presenting the talk, or just having the business part of it and what you can do with your business. And of course, a book can be part of that too. So
Yes.
being able to go out and speak about your book. So that's kind of where my journey kind of has gotten to now, is I'm actually really looking forward to going out and speaking with my book. So primarily first, I'm focusing on getting into the school systems. So of course I can go in person in the London and surrounding area, but virtual also is so possible these days. So virtual speaking as well has been the big thing in the last few years, being able to do it that way. So being able to go out and present from head to heart to students, and then having that discussion of feelings and asking for help, the mental health piece of this. And then, of course, the whole big message that comes out from the end is the fact of it's okay to be yourself. You really need to be authentically you. And that person over there that's trying to make fun of you, they're the ones that's probably not really strong in their sense of self. So if we can help kids feel that sense of self, and be proud of who they are and be able to realize the dreams that they have of themselves. So going into the classroom and talking about these messages, but also having had the teaching background, I can bring in different curriculum expectations and connections. For example, if I was talking to a primary or a junior class, I would bring in the literacy components. So, let's break down the story from beginning, middle, and end. What are those connections, those book-to-book connections that maybe another book that you've read, or book-to-self connections, and being able to talk a little bit of what does this book remind you of in your own life. So being able to do those types of book talks that say a primary teacher would be doing in the classroom anyways, I think would go a long way in terms of keeping the consistency in what the students need to be thinking about, how a story is put together, but then also now seeing all these other messages that can also be told at the same time.
I remember having authors come into the classroom when I was in school as a child, and always in awe that, wow, they're an author. Like, they have a book, right? And I remember sitting on the floor in the auditorium or in the classroom, and they'd be on the chairs showing the book and speaking from the book. And I was always admired and kind of enamored by these authors that would come through and share their stories. So I'm so happy to hear that you're doing that and you have plans for that in the future as well, because I think that's a great connection. And the story of your book is so easily applicable to students whether they are being bullied or they are the bully.
Yeah.
I think that's the other side of this conversation that I feel that a lot of people don't really understand the power of that saying that hurt people tend to hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And what is a bully coming to school? What is their home life like? What are they experiencing before they even get to school? And how does that translate? And what do they do with that? Because I know growing up for myself, again, going back to my background, being bullied, I got to the point where I had really very so low self-esteem and self-worth because I was constantly the target. So I found myself then targeting others to try to build myself back up. And I became part of the problem to the point when my friend met me after school one day and said, if you touch my brother again, I didn't even know who his brother was. If you touch my brother again, we're going to have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I was picking on his younger brother without realizing who he was. And I was exercising out of frustration and not knowing what to do, not having adults in my life to kind of give me that guidance and protection, and not knowing how to use my voice. I was acting out in a way that was hurting others. And that was my moment where I was like, okay, I got to stop. Right? And even as a young child, realizing the error of hurting others by being hurt, and it's a big lesson to learn as a child.
Seeing that early on, that would have been something that really was like, oh, yeah. Being able to see that what was happening there. That's interesting. Yeah.
So if we can speak to the bullies, right? Speak to the bullies as well. And maybe how can we build them up to the point where they don't need to act in a way that hurts others? I think that's another side of this piece. It really brings a lot of meaning.
Well, they could be asking for help as well, right? So being at least even just asking for support, kind of for somebody to recognize the position that they're in. Yeah.
To get beyond the discipline side of it and get to the heart of the matter and how can we help each other? I love that side. That's great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But that's kind of another reason why I want to be able to, as I said, focusing on the school system, but I do want to be able to get out there and talk to adults too, just for that reason that even people similar age as myself could see themselves in this book. And it's for them to realize, it's never too late in order to do something about your own healing. So whether it's going to be in, adult workshops that I'll put together or even just speaking at different conferences, I'm looking forward to that as well.
So for somebody that's thinking about writing a book, Wanda, and they haven't done it yet, what advantage do you see as a new author that having a book opens for you? What kind of doors does it open? What have you learned about yourself in the process? Why is writing a book a good thing?
I think it's just more that little piece of yourself. Again, putting that little piece of yourself out there, needing courage to do it. But the fact of being able to do it, I think helps move your whole self forward, having your own self-esteem again, kind of going down that route as well. It's like, I did it, just the fact of accomplishing something. It's not like writing a children's book was ever a lifelong dream of mine. I think I've always known that I was going to write. And I do have several books that I've been co-author on, but this one is my book, right? And it's more just all those steps that go along with it and just knowing that I stuck with it too. It's like, that first illustrator didn't work out, so I went and found another one. I didn't necessarily have the money in bank. What did I do? I went and fundraised. So it's like, and just knowing that I kind of followed through with it all in order to go from little idea at the beginning to actually having the book. It's just, I think it's just that sense of accomplishment. That feels good.
And yes, and again, you're writing about a topic that's very meaningful to a lot of people. So I love that you went down that path. Wanda, what is the best way for people to find your book? How can they support you and purchase the book? Where do we send them?
So several ways. You can go to my website, which is wandadavis.ca, or you can just email me at wanda at wandadavis.ca. And I can actually personally, you can just e-transfer me, and then I will mail out the book to you. Additional shipping charges apply if you're not in my local area. It was funny today. I just mailed one out to Guelph today. So that was good.
Nice.
Then, yeah. So, but if you don't want to go that route, you can also, because I have the paper quality that I am getting directly from my printer is the best. We all kind of know that sometimes when you order it from Amazon or whatever, and they're doing the print on demand, sometimes you're not always getting the best quality. So I am also available, though, at Chapters Indigo. And those books are also fulfilled through my printer. So you can go online to look up From Head to Heart on Chapters Indigo. They're only available in the one store in London at this point in time. I haven't branched out to check out the other in other surrounding regions where I am doing the fulfillment. That's in the London North store, Indigo store in London. And if you're in the United States, you can actually get it from Amazon.com. And I'm trusting the print quality is good in that case. And it's also available as an ebook on Amazon.com as well. So for those teachers that just want to be able to use it with their smartboard, or somebody who wants to be able to use it with their ebook device, that works well for having it in the ebook version too. Or if you want to, and that's kind of, if I do get a large order, I am going to direct people to my printer, which is Volumes Publishing.
Excellent. I've had some other
directly from there as well.
I've had people ask for people that have visual challenges for Audible books. Is there going to be an audio version of the book at some point as well?
I don't know. That was one of the things that was kind of on my list of the things that I would try to put together if we met the Kickstarter, went past beyond making the Kickstarter campaign. I myself, I would have to probably have somebody else help me with that. I probably don't have quite the equipment that would be needed. My big fear in doing those things is usually the editing part. So I would have to, that could be down the road though. Yeah, because usually when I think of, I've worked with special needs students for a long time. And so that was one thing I think I kept making them do when I was doing the book, was to actually have the printing as big as they were willing to do it, just for the visual challenges as well.
Nice. Excellent. I love that you've planned that all out. Thank you, Wanda, so much for being part of the podcast today and to share your message and your book. And I'm encouraging all of our listeners, whether you have children or not, this is a book that's going to be able to help you and help you to identify and support others, whether they're being bullied or maybe they're part of the problem. And maybe we can all have a lesson that we learn by maybe breaking down some of these walls around us and letting children live without those barriers around them. I'm excited to share your message, Wanda. Thank you for being part of the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Dave. Yeah, just to be able to have people be able to respond to different things in a much, improved way. If I can help so many people just do that, I'm very happy to do that. So thank you very much for having me here today.
If you're looking for a great speaker to come and share, whether you're in a school or you have an adult group, whatever you need, reach out to Wanda. She can come and inspire you and push you forward. Thank you, Wanda, so much for being part of our podcast.
Thank you. Much gratitude.
Hey guys, thank you for listening to the podcast. Jump over to livingthenextchapter.com, our website, and you will see a spot where you can leave a voice message. We'd love to hear your feedback. We're trying to make it as easy as possible to hear from you. So if you want your voice on this podcast, yes, that's possible. Go to livingthenextchapter.com, click the little microphone icon, leave a voice message. We'll insert your message into the podcast. Tell us where you're listening from. Tell us your favorite guest. Maybe there's a guest we should have on the podcast. Maybe you should be our next guest. leave us a message at livingthenextchapter.com. Again, thank you so much for listening. Please share this podcast episode with one person. That's all we're asking. Meet you over there at livingthenextchapter.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Love to hear from you. Till the next episode. It's coming up right away. Be sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you for being part of Living the Next Chapter. Thank you for supporting our guests. Have a great day.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.